a case came up this year, 2024, and it was Marin Autobahn Society v. the Federal Aviation Administration in the San Francisco Bay region. And the case was heard and appealed in the DC District Court. And the three justices looking at this case made an astonishing finding that 40 CFR 1500 to 1508, which are the regulations for implementing the National Environmental Policy Act, are not tied to any law at all, because they're issued by the Council on Environmental Quality, which is a executive office branch for the president, for the White House, but it's not established by any law. And so that's an astonishing finding. And it's as big as Looper Bright, in my view. And now it hasn't hit the Supreme Court yet, and I'm sure it will. But I'm going to jump back to 1897 in the Organic Administration Act. And in the Organic Administration Act, the secretary was charged with provisions to protect the national forest or the forest reserves from fire and depredations of insects. That, and I'm really preaching to the choir here. The Organic Administration Act, it's the Organic Act. That's the Forest Service and its mission, okay, across the century or so and a quarter that it's been operating, and to protect our lands. And then if you move through the rest of the laws, and their alphabet soup laws, the Multiple Use Sustained Yield Act, okay, there's nothing in there about the use of fire at all. It's completely silent. In 1973, the Organic Administration Act was challenged by the Isaac Walton League in West Virginia. Okay, the case is known as Isaac Walton v. Butts, and we know it in the Forest Service as the Monongahela decision. But basically, in the Organic Administration Act, the secretary was allowed by the Congress to designate trees, okay, and to harvest old, large, and mature trees, okay? But the Monongahela was clear cutting, and they were only designating the boundaries, and they were taking intermediate age trees, which were neither large, mature, or dead. And so that caused a shutdown of the timber program. That's how powerful the Organic Administration Act is. And I think there's some room to work on this fire situation through what the act says about the depredations of fire and insects, that the secretary shall prevent them. Anyway, that situation was solved by an amendment of the Resources Planning Act called the National Forest Management Act, and both the RPA and the NFMA, the National Forest Management Act, mention nothing about fire, only in the sense of fire damage to timber and salvage. So, so the underpinnings of the Four Corner laws do not really support this fire use, whether it's natural ignition fire and we're going to let it burn, or it's even prescribed burning. And then moving forward to 2009, okay, the FLAME Act, which is the Federal Land Assistance and Management Enhancement Act, which was supposed to be a budgetary gimmick fix for the fire funding issue, and it completely failed in the Obama administration. It did have one provision in that appropriation law, and that was that the agencies, the federal land management agencies, were to develop a cohesive strategy. And this is where I think our burning has taken off from, is this cohesive strategy where it says we will learn to live with fire, and we will like it because we tell you so. And then the other side of those are all authorizing laws. The other side of the coin is appropriations law. And Bill mentioned the appropriations law earlier, but appropriations law is very specific. It tells you an agency how to spend money and where to spend that money. And when you read the appropriations law, And all laws, whether they're authorizing um, or appropriating, okay, are set to plain English language. The words are the common meanings. You don't need a Rosetta Stone to figure out what the what that word means. It is as it is in the text, and its plain meaning. That's the definition that the Supreme Court gave it years ago, and it says that it's for pre-suppression, emergency suppression, and post suppression operations. And the actual word is emergency. And the second part of that is suppression. And suppression means to stop something. Okay, it means to end it. And so I think there's some rich history here that we can bring forward to a new administration and to maybe a better listening Congress to get this situation with wildfire under control. And I really thank Dana for putting this on, and I'm just awed to be here listening to all these folks talk about issues. Some I've known and some I've seen on TV and so forth. Nadine, I remember you at the Forest Conference when I was watching it on TV, and then later on in life we met. So, you know, it's a small world, but we're all on the same page. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Joe Reddan, and I've been a forester for 47 years. 38 of those 47 years, I worked for the U.S. Forest Service. I retired out of the national office. I served time in legislative affairs, and my last position was assistant director of forest products, and I took the place of the great Fitz, if some of you know Fitz, Dick Fitzgerald, who ended up with a 64-year career in the Forest Service. And I'm just going to say I'm here in Napa County, California, and we're also having, as the weather people call it these days, the bomb cyclone, the atmospheric river. So we're glad to have that, and it will be good for getting moisture recharge into our forest. I will say in my remarks here that I wanted to go into the underpinnings of law. But before I get started in that, I wanted to say that I was the primary author on page 308 of Project 2025 on reforming the Forest Service in that book. And so I had 700 words, and I couldn't pick a lot to talk about. So I talked about fire, which is, I think, what everybody here, and its misuse by the Forest Service. And I did call for more timber harvesting to take place in view of the Forest Service's mission.